Welcome to the Top 1% Book Club. We unpack those key ideas from self-improvement books so you don't have to.
And today we're diving deep into Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. Have you read this one?
It's sitting right here on my desk. It's all about how trust and leadership are the real keys to building a great team.
Exactly. We've got excerpts from the book itself, plus a great summary blog post, even some YouTube videos that break down those key concepts.
We've got it all covered. Okay, so right off the bat, Sinek lays out this idea of a circle of safety.
Right.
And he says, when we feel threatened at work, we get all defensive.
Yeah, and less productive too, right? All our energy goes into protecting ourselves.
Protecting ourselves instead of doing the work.
It's like our brains are stuck in survival mode, like that fight or flight response, essential if you're, facing a real danger.
Right.
But in the workplace, it totally kills creativity
Yeah.
and collaboration.
Nobody's doing their best work when they're afraid. Sinek uses this amazing story to illustrate this. Johnny Bravo, an A-10 pilot in Afghanistan. He repeatedly risked his own life to protect troops on the ground.
Wow.
And when asked why he'd do that, he said, because they would have done it for me.
Talk about a circle of safety. It makes you wonder, though, could he have been that brave without that trust? Like, did the lack of safety contribute to some of the negative examples?
Well, that's a great point. I mean, he does contrast that with what happened at Goldman Sachs. Back in the 70s, their culture was known for long-term thinking, loyalty, and then in the 90s, things shifted. A more aggressive, numbers-driven approach.
The result.
A decline in trust
Yeah.
and morale. And then there's Jack Welch.
At GE.
Right. He's famous for that rank and yank thing, forcing managers to fire the bottom 10% each year.
But he was admired for the results, though, wasn't he? Is Sinek saying profits always come at a human cost?
He highlights how that short-term focus, putting numbers over people, can really backfire. It might work for a while, but ultimately it erodes trust and loyalty. And the thing is, this need for safety, this circle of safety, it's not just some nice idea.
No, it's much deeper.
It's biological.
Hmm.
When we feel safe and connected, our brains release chemicals like serotonin and oxytocin, and that creates those positive feedback loops, trust, cooperation, that sort of thing.
This isn't just touchy-feely stuff. It's literally how we're wired.
It's science.
It is. Think about how you feel after a good laugh with your colleagues. That's oxytocin. So if we're wired for it, how do leaders actually tap into that? How do they build that circle of safety?
Well, Sinek says it starts with understanding this idea that leaders eat last, literally and metaphorically.
Oh, right. He uses that example of Marine Corps officers. They eat after their troops.
Signaling that their well-being comes first. And it's not about being a martyr or anything. It's about prioritizing the team.
Over personal gain.
Right. Being willing to make sacrifices. Because ultimately, a strong team benefits everyone.
And you can't just tell people to trust each other. You have to show them transparency, consistency, empathy. Those are actions that build trust over time.
It's walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah.
And having a shared vision, a mission everyone understands, that's huge.
It creates that sense of purpose. Like we're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
It's not about holding hands and singing Kumbaya, but recognizing that when people feel safe, valued, they do their best work, and they support each other.
Makes sense. And Sinek really emphasizes communication. Make it safe for people to share ideas, concerns, even mistakes.
Because that's how we learn, right?
That's how we grow. But you can't just say that, can you? Sinek says leadership is about demonstrating that trust. And he points to the shift that started in the 80s, prioritizing performance above all else.
And we're still living with that, aren't we?
Layoffs becoming common, job security gone, that focus on short-term gains.
The bottom line.
Yeah. And that danger within idea really resonated with me. I worked at a place where hitting your numbers no matter what was everything. Toxic.
Nobody wants to work in a place like that.
People were afraid to speak up, admit a mistake.
It's almost like the system itself works against that circle of safety. And the results are all around us, right? Burnout, disengagement, no loyalty.
And it's all because we've prioritized the numbers over the well-being of the people.
So what do? How do we fix this?
Well, Sinek argues that we need a new kind of leader. One who understands that leaders eat last is more than just a saying, it's how we operate.
And he uses the U.S. Marines as an example. Their boot camp, it's not just about physical training. It's about instilling those shared values, building empathy.
Wow.
They come out with a strong circle of safety because they only fear danger from outside the group, not from each other.
That's powerful. So when leaders prioritize the team's well-being.
It creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Trust grows, information flows freely, people are more willing to collaborate, take risks, and this is where it gets really interesting. Sinek talks about the science behind all this, the chemicals that actually drive our behavior. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin.
Dopamine, that's the selfish one, right? Rewards achievements.
Exactly. Powerful motivator, but very short-lived. And what's fascinating is how serotonin and oxytocin, those selfless chemicals, play such a huge role in building that trust, that lasting fulfillment.
So how do those work?
Serotonin. It's triggered by feelings of pride, accomplishment, respect from our peers.
And oxytocin.
That's the love hormone.
Right, right.
Released when we feel connected.
Oh.
Trust, belonging. It's the glue that holds strong teams together.
Literally. So Sinek says leaders who understand all this can create environments where those selfless chemicals thrive. He gives the example of 3M.
The company known for its innovation.
Right, right. And at 3M, failure isn't punished. It's seen as an opportunity to learn.
So they've got this safe space for experimentation,
Yeah.
collaboration, and the results speak for themselves. Thousands of patents, all those inventions that came from different departments working together.
Incredible. So it's not about, like, perfect harmony or anything?
Right. No, it's about recognizing that when people feel safe and valued, they're more likely to do their best work.
And support each other.
Right. They become more than just a team. They become a tribe.
I like that. A tribe. So what's the takeaway for us here?
Lead the people, not the numbers.
Oh.
And this is where Sinek really targets that overemphasis on metrics.
Which can be dehumanizing, can it?
Totally. He uses the example of the Peanut Corporation of America. Remember that. Focus on profits over safety.
Oh, right. Led to a nationwide salmonella outbreak.
Exactly. A stark reminder of what happens when we prioritize the bottom line above all else.
Scary. So where do we go from here? How do we apply all this in our own work lives?
Sinek lays out a framework for becoming a better leader, one that emphasizes serving others, building that culture of trust. It's not about wielding power. It's about creating an environment where everyone thrives. And he gives some really specific, actionable steps that we can take, like creating that strong circle of safety within our teams, fostering an environment where people feel safe to speak up, share their ideas, even make mistakes, without fear of punishment.
Right.
And leading by example, right?
Yeah.
If we want our teams to trust us, we have to be trustworthy ourselves. Transparency, consistency, empathy.
Show them what it looks like. Don't just talk about it.
Right. And building those strong relationships within our organizations. Getting to know our colleagues, understanding what motivates them, connecting beyond just work tasks. He even suggests limiting our reliance on email for those important conversations.
Oh, interesting.
Have a face-to-face conversation, pick up the phone, because that's where the power of oxytocin really comes in, that trust-building hormone.
Makes sense. But building a strong culture, that takes time, effort. It's not about grand gestures or one-off initiative.
It's about consistency. Small actions, day after day, that demonstrate our commitment to the team's well-being.
It's about creating that culture where leaders eat last isn't just something we say, it's what we do.
Right. Remember those Marine Corps officers? It's about recognizing that the most effective leaders, they prioritize their team's well-being above their own personal gain.
And this is a crucial point. Sinek emphasizes that this kind of leadership isn't limited to people in positions of authority.
Oh, interesting.
Anyone can embody these principles. Anyone can contribute to a more positive and productive work environment.
I love that. It's empowering. One of the most compelling ideas in the book is this concept of abstraction, how it's crept into modern life, especially in the workplace.
What does he mean by that?
As organizations have grown larger, more complex, we've lost sight of the human element. Employees become numbers on a spreadsheet. Customers become data points.
And the focus shifts to maximizing profits.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
And this abstraction makes it easier to make decisions that put the bottom line above people. It's easier to lay off hundreds of employees when you don't know their names, their families, their stories.
You just see a number, not a person.
Sinek uses the evolution of the broadcast news industry to illustrate this. Remember back in the early days, news was seen as a public service.
Right.
And networks focused on delivering accurate, informative content, even if it wasn't always profitable.
And then?
As competition grew, the focus shifted to ratings. The pursuit of profit took over. News became entertainment, sensationalism, and the public trust eroded.
Sad, but true. And he's saying a similar shift has happened in other industries.
He argues that this pressure to deliver results, to hit those quarterly targets, to constantly grow and expand, it's led to a culture where those short-term gains come at the expense of long-term sustainability and the well-being of people.
Oh.
But he offers hope. He believes we can create a better future, one where organizations prioritize purpose and people.
Over profits alone.
Exactly. He calls for a return to those values that have sustained humanity for centuries. Trust, cooperation, a sense of belonging. He argues that we need to rediscover the power of those selfless chemicals, create work environments where people feel safe, valued, inspired to contribute their best work.
It's a big shift.
It's a paradigm shift in how we think about leadership and success.
So it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder.
Or maximizing shareholder value. No, it's about building organizations that are driven by purpose, that create value for all stakeholders, and that prioritize the well-being of their people.
I love that. And this brings us to another fascinating concept, Dunbar's number. Ever heard of it?
I have.
It's this anthropological principle. It says that humans can only maintain stable social relationships with around 150 people.
That's it?
Yeah, that's the magic number.
Wow.
And this has huge implications for leadership. Think about it. As organizations grow beyond that number, it becomes really difficult for leaders to connect with everyone on a personal level.
Right.
Trust starts to erode, silos emerge, communication breaks down.
That's why those strong cultures are so vital.
They are. They provide a framework for how people should interact, even when they don't know each other personally.
So it's like a set of shared values.
A clear vision, a sense of belonging. That can bridge the gap when Dunbar's number is exceeded.
It's like a shortcut to connection.
Exactly. And this is where Sinek's call for leading the people, not the numbers, becomes even more important.
Because as organizations grow,
It's tempting to rely on systems, metrics, to manage people.
we try to quantify everything.
But that can be dehumanizing, can't it?
Absolutely. When we only focus on outputs, outcomes, we forget that we're dealing with real people, each with their own unique needs, motivations, aspirations.
So it's not about throwing out the metrics altogether.
Right. They can be valuable tools for tracking progress, identifying areas to improve.
But they should never be the sole driver of our decisions.
Yeah.
Especially those that impact people's lives. So Sinek's challenging us to rethink how we measure success.
It's not just about profits and growth. It's about the well-being of our employees, the strength of our relationships, the positive impact we have on the world around us.
The return on humanity.
Exactly. Alongside that return on investment. And this leads to one of those powerful ideas in the book.
What's that?
His comparison of the modern business world to an addiction,
An addiction to what?
to dopamine. That selfish chemical we talked about earlier, that drives us to seek rewards. Instant gratification. We're constantly chasing the next big thing.
The next deal, the next quarterly report, the next stock price surge.
Right. And like any addiction, this pursuit comes at a cost. We sacrifice our health, our relationships, our values, in pursuit of more.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
And he uses the 2008 financial crisis as a prime example. That drive to maximize profits, create ever-increasing returns. It led to those reckless lending practices, that culture of risk-taking.
Which ultimately brought the global economy to its knees.
And he draws parallels to other industries, where that relentless pursuit of growth has led to ethical lapses, environmental damage, a widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. He's not saying that capitalism is inherently evil,
Right.
but that we've created a system that's out of balance.
Where profit has become an end in itself, rather than a means to a greater good.
Exactly. So the question is, how do we break free from this addiction?
Oh.
How do we create a more sustainable way of doing business?
A humane way, a better way.
Sinek offers a framework for recovery, and he draws inspiration from that 12-step program used by Alcoholics Anonymous. He says the first step, admitting that we have a problem, acknowledging that our current system is unsustainable.
That we're addicted to dopamine.
Right. And the second step is seeking help. We can't do this alone. We need those communities of support to learn from each other, to hold each other accountable. And the third step, probably the most challenging, making a commitment to change, shifting our focus from those selfish chemicals to the selfless chemicals, prioritizing the well-being of our people, building those strong relationships, making decisions that contribute to the greater good. He believes that this shift isn't just possible, it's essential for our survival as a species.
Wow. High stakes. And he ties this back to those challenges we face today, right? Climate change, social inequality, political polarization.
They're all interconnected. too complex for us to solve alone. He says we need to tap into that innate human capacity for cooperation, harness the power of those selfless chemicals to create a better future.
Makes sense. And this is where the idea of leaders eat last comes full circle.
It's a call to action, a challenge for all of us, regardless of our position or title, to step up and become the leaders we were born to be. Prioritize our team's well-being, build those cultures of trust and cooperation, make decisions that contribute to a more just and sustainable world.
Powerful stuff. And this whole conversation, it really highlights how leadership isn't about wielding power, it's about serving others. Creating a world where everyone feels safe, valued, inspired to do their best work.
What stands out to you from all of this? What resonates with your own experiences?
It's this abstraction idea. How easy it is to get caught up in those numbers, those systems, the daily grind, and lose sight of the human element. Forget that we're dealing with real people with hopes, dreams, fears. It's a reminder to bring that humanity back, to see each other, and build organizations that put people before profits.
Absolutely. And it's a challenge, isn't it, to stay conscious of that, especially in this fast-paced, tech-driven world. But the rewards are huge.
Yeah.
When you create a workplace where people feel valued and supported, you unlock this level of creativity, innovation, collaboration.
That you just can't get in a culture of fear. Sinek's insights into those selfless chemicals were really fascinating to me. It makes sense that when we feel a sense of belonging, when we're contributing to something bigger, we're more engaged, more fulfilled. And it's not just about feeling good, it's about tapping into a deeper motivation.
That drives us to do our best and support each other. And I think this is where Leaders Eat Last takes on a new level of meaning. It's not just about making sure everyone gets a piece of the pie. It's about making sure everyone feels like they're baking the pie together.
Love that analogy. And it ties back to purpose. Shared vision. When everyone understands how their work fits into the bigger picture, they're more committed.
It's not about carrots and sticks. It's about intrinsic motivation.
Exactly.
So, Leaders Eat Last, it's a call to action, a challenge for all of us to become better leaders, regardless of our title or position.
It's about taking responsibility for creating a more humane, sustainable workplace where people feel safe, valued, inspired to contribute their best work.
And it starts with us.
With the choices we make, the actions we take, how we treat each other every single day. We can perpetuate that old culture of fear, or we can create a new story based on abundance, collaboration, and shared purpose.
So, Leaders Eat Last is more than just a book title. It's a philosophy, a call to action, a reminder that true leadership isn't about wielding power, it's about serving others, making choices that benefit everyone.
Building a world where everyone thrives. It's interesting how that addiction idea ties back to the circle of safety.
In what way?
Well, think about it. When work feels like this constant battle, when we're all driven by fear, scarcity,
Right.
it triggers those primal instincts, right? Self-preservation.
So we're focused on protecting ourselves, not collaborating.
Exactly. It's like we're stuck in that fight or flight mode.
Which, like we said, doesn't exactly lead to great work.
Or fulfillment, right. And that's where Sinek says the real danger is.
The danger within.
Right. When trust is gone, when people feel like they're competing for everything.
Resources recognition.
It creates this breeding ground for bad behavior, unethical behavior. He uses the 2008 financial crisis as an example.
Oh, yeah.
That
Right.
whole culture of greed, short-term thinking.
It led to the collapse of the housing market.
And it's scary how we just accept this as how things are,
We've become desensitized to the human cost.
We've traded our humanity for a hit of dopamine.
That quick reward.
Yeah, a bonus, a promotion. We've lost sight of what really matters.
Relationships, community, ourselves even.
Right, and Sinek says we need to rediscover those selfless chemicals, right? Create workplaces where people feel connected, supported, inspired.
To contribute to something bigger.
He's not saying we have to become saints or anything.
Yeah, but to recognize how interconnected we all are.
Our actions have consequences, not just for us, but for everyone.
With the world.
Exactly. Which brings us to this idea of servant leadership.
Right.
Recognizing that leadership isn't about power or authority, it's about empowering others.
Sinek uses that example of Captain Abrashoff, who transformed the USS Benfold. It had this reputation for low morale, poor performance, and instead of just barking orders, he listened to his crew.
He understood them.
Created an environment where they felt valued.
And the results were incredible. Morale went up, performance skyrocketed. The Benfold became one of the most efficient ships in the Navy.
That's amazing.
It shows how prioritizing your team can unlock those results. It's about shifting from I to we,
Working together toward shared success, not competing against each other.
That I to we shift feels so important today, especially when everything seems to celebrate individual achievement above all else.
Sinek argues that it's actually working against us, though, preventing us from building those strong teams that we need.
To tackle the big challenges.
Like, he uses millennials as an example.
Right.
They're often stereotyped as entitled narcissistic, but Sinek sees them as a product of their environment. They've grown up in a world where technology's made it easier to connect online, but harder to connect in person.
Interesting. So they've been told to focus on personal branding, self-promotion,
Instant gratification.
and they've seen how prioritizing profits over people can go wrong.
Yeah. Sinek believes millennials have the potential to be amazing leaders, but we have to create the right conditions for them. Mentorship, support, opportunities to develop those skills.
This is where mentorship is so crucial. Experienced leaders need to share what they know, guide the next generation.
Help them navigate this crazy world.
It's not about imposing our values, though, right?
No, it's about listening, guiding, empowering them to find their own path.
To discover their own leadership potential.
And it doesn't have to be some big formal program.
Right.
It could be as simple as taking a colleague under your wing, offering advice, being a good role model.
Exactly. It creates this ripple effect.
Of positive change.
One person at a time.
I love that.
And Sinek argues that we need to shift our focus from winning to serving. Leadership isn't a race to the top, it's a responsibility.
It's an opportunity to make a difference,
That idea of servant leadership has been around, but it feels really relevant now.
especially now, yeah.
When we focus on helping others, on helping them reach their full potential.
We create a better world for everyone.
Exactly. And it brings us to this big question. What's our purpose? Why are we here? What do we want to leave behind?
Wow, that's deep.
It's a question we don't often think about.
Too busy with our daily lives.
But it's essential for finding meaning, fulfillment. Sinek says our purpose isn't something we find, it's something we create.
Yeah, interesting.
It's about using our strengths, our passions to make a positive impact.
Aligning our actions with our beliefs.
Living a life that reflects what we truly care about.
And it doesn't have to be some grand, heroic thing, right?
No, it could be showing kindness, supporting a friend, making a difference in our community.
Small acts multiplied across millions of people.
It can change the world.
That's powerful. Sinek reminds us that we all have the potential to make a difference. We don't need a fancy title to be a leader.
Leadership is about taking responsibility, stepping up, making choices that contribute to a better future.
And it starts with each of us right now.
What are you taking away from this that you can apply to your own life?
This I to we shift. Recognizing that my success is intertwined with everyone else's. The team, the organization, the community. It's a challenge, but it's essential. And remembering to see the people, not just the numbers.
Absolutely. Bringing that human element back. Creating an environment where everyone feels seen, heard, appreciated.
Sinek talked about those dangers of abstraction, how we can lose sight of the human element when we're chasing efficiency, profits.
It's easy to get lost in the data, the systems.
But we can't forget that we're dealing with real people, with their own hopes and dreams.
Sinek argues that true leadership is about serving others, not just ourselves.
It's about thinking beyond our own ambitions.
Considering how our actions impact others.
It's about asking ourselves, how can I contribute to something bigger? How can I make a difference?
Those are the questions that lead to a meaningful life, a life of purpose.
Where we're working together to create a better future.
Not just chasing individual success.
Sinek uses this really powerful analogy in the book. He compares the business world to an addiction. He says we've become addicted to dopamine. That selfish chemical that keeps us chasing the next promotion, the next quarterly report.
And we forget about the well-being of our employees, our relationships.
The long-term sustainability of our organizations.
Makes you wonder, are we so focused on winning that we've forgotten what we're even playing for?
Are we sacrificing our health, our relationships, our values in the process?
It's a big question.
And Sinek's book gives us a framework for breaking free from that addiction, for building a more humane, sustainable way of doing business.
He challenges us to shift from those selfish chemicals to the selfless chemicals, from dopamine to serotonin and oxytocin,
From scarcity and competition to abundance and collaboration.
from winning at all costs to serving others, making a positive impact.
It's a tough shift, but if we want to create a future where everyone thrives,
It's essential.
and his book is full of inspiring stories about leaders who've done just that. Embrace this philosophy.
Put their teams, their communities above their own ambitions.
Those stories give us hope.
They show us that a different way is possible.
One of the key things Sinek emphasizes is trust.
He says it's the foundation of any strong relationship.
Without it, we're constantly second-guessing each other,
Holding back information.
protecting ourselves.
It creates that environment of fear where collaboration and innovation can't exist.
Sinek gives practical advice on how to build trust.
Transparency, communication, consistency,
Vulnerability.
being willing to admit mistakes, to ask for help.
When we create a space where people feel safe to be themselves, to share ideas, to take risks,
We unlock that potential.
that creativity and collaboration you can't get in a culture of fear.
And he also talks about the importance of a shared vision.
That sense of purpose that brings everyone together.
When people understand why they're doing what they're doing, they're more engaged.
More committed.
That's where leadership comes in. It's about articulating that vision, inspiring others.
Creating an environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute.
True leadership isn't about power or authority.
It's about serving others.
Putting the team first.
Senek's book is full of examples of this kind of leadership.
From military commanders to business executives to community organizers.
It shows us that servant leadership gets results.
His insights into human behavior, those selfless chemicals, are fascinating, aren't they?
We're wired for connection, for belonging.
For contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
And when we tap into those drives, we unlock incredible potential.
It's not about carrots and sticks. It's about intrinsic motivation.
It reminds us that we're not just cogs in a machine,
We're human beings
with a need to connect, to contribute.
to make a difference.
And that's what Leaders Eat Last is all about, creating a world where our workplaces are more than just jobs.
But communities of purpose, of belonging,
Recognizing that true success isn't just about individual achievement.
but about collective well-being.
Building a future where leaders eat last.
And everyone has a seat at the table. But this leaders eat last idea, it's not just a nice sentiment.
Right, there's real action behind it.
How do we actually do this?
Sinek gives some concrete examples of how leaders can put this into practice. He talks about truly valuing employees,
Okay.
not just as workers, but as people with lives outside of work. Creating a culture where it's okay to take time off when you need it.
Right. Whether it's for a sick kid or, just to recharge.
A well-rested employee is a better employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it starts at the top. When leaders prioritize their own well-being, it sets the tone. Take time for yourself, for your family.
It shows people it's okay to put your own well-being first.
It builds trust.
Loyalty. Sinek also talks about fairness,
Making sure everyone has a real chance to succeed.
no matter their background. Promotions based on merit, not who you know.
Fair salaries, transparency.
Access to the resources you need to do your best work,
It's about creating a system where everyone feels like they have a fair shot.
where no one's held back by outdated policies or biases.
We're just plain old assumptions.
Sinek says diversity and inclusion aren't just buzzwords, they're essential for a thriving organization.
Because when you bring together people from different backgrounds, you get a richer, more dynamic workplace.
It challenges those old ways of thinking, leads to more creative solutions.
It's not just the right thing to do, it's good business.
So in a way, this whole deep dive has been about challenging those old assumptions about leadership, teamwork, success.
Right. Realizing those old ways of doing things, the profits before people approach, just doesn't work anymore.
And embracing this new model.
Trust, cooperation, a shared commitment to a better future.
And it starts with each of us.
The choices we make, the actions we take.
How we treat each other every single day.
We can choose to keep that old culture of fear going.
Or we can create a new story.
One of abundance, collaboration, purpose.
So Leaders Eat Last, it's more than just a book title.
It's a philosophy, a call to action.
A reminder that true leadership isn't about power, it's about service.
Making choices that benefit everyone.
Building a world where everyone thrives.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Leaders Eat Last. We hope you found it insightful.
And that it sparks some new ideas about leadership and teamwork and what it takes to create a truly fulfilling work environment.
Remember, true leadership isn't about your job title. It's about the impact you have on those around you.
So go out there and be the leader you wish you had.
And let's build a future where everyone eats.
Until next time, keep learning, keep leading,